Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning, and it's 11:11 and here in Colorado, and welcome to everybody who's joining us live. I see lots of you guys joining in already, so come on in and join us. Welcome to the Buddhist Biohacker podcast. We are creating conscious content for 1111D, and I am so excited about today. Buddhist Biohacker is all about creating the new media, creating conscious content. And every Friday for the last few Fridays at 11:11, we've been learning about physics, and it's been pretty crazy. I never thought I would be doing PowerPoints about string theory and quantum physics and talking about quantum time and spiral time and all these things, because I am not a scientist. But we are on this journey, and I am beyond honored and excited to introduce our guest today, Tim Sandars from Omnia. He has some very important information. This is probably one of the most important podcasts we've done this year since the global event started in March. And I just cannot stress this enough. Welcome, Tim. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure. Thanks very much for the invite. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, this is just, it's so good. And so I wanted to start out, and just for everybody who's joining in the live, you guys can please use the live chat. You can ask questions, you can share your comments. We'd love to hear that. And if you're listening later on audio on iTunes and Spotify, you can go to mewe.com, mewe.com, also a great social media platform for 11D, and go to Buddhist Biohacker to our forum, and we can continue the conversation there as well. So Tim, I want you to start by just introducing yourself and sharing your story, because that alone is actually very interesting to me, and I would love for you to talk about it.
Sure. Well, I never quite know where to start in those questions, but well, I'm an entrepreneur. I set up a business which we called Omnia because I like the sound of it. Omnia. It's kind of like do re mi and has that kind of sonic harmonic sound to it. But the reason I set the business up was because a couple of years ago I was in a science lecture, and I'm not really much of a scientist, but I went to this talk on free energy, and it was by a guy called Dr. Ilya Lakisevich. And in it, he was talking about how the energy of the future was going to be when you get on a bike and you just say to the bike, ride, and the bike rides itself. And he was giving examples of how consciousness could actually drive the energy of the future. And this was really, I'd not heard anything like this ever before. So I was sort of, just paying a passive interest. And then halfway through, he said, well, I've got the solutions to all radiation problems in the world as well. And I was like, well, hold on. I know that that's a big thing, even 2 years ago. And so I got chatting to him afterwards, and I said to him, what's your solution? And he gave me his product. And I took it back to London. We were in South Africa at the time. I took it back to London, and I started testing it in the ways that I knew that I could test it. And I found that it worked extremely well, really, really well. So I was like, okay, well, what's this solution? How does it work? Because basically it was just a sticker patch. And that was beyond my comprehension of how things could work. Most people think that there's got to be a chip or a hologram or a crystal or something, but yet here was this energy, if you like, or this kind of code in a patch. And that led me on a journey to understand all of his concepts in science, which are truly extraordinary and give us multiple aha moments. Not just for understanding the body as it is at the moment, and also explaining exactly why, on an electrical level, the human body responds to radiation fields, and in fact, what quality it is in the radiation field, which disrupts the electrical current in the human body, because that's what it's all about. But also, it opened the door to an understanding of a future where, once we understand truly what energy is, where it comes from, how it's, if you like, produced or created within our universe, then we can make steps to get into a future where energy can be in harmony with the earth rather than destructive of the earth, and therefore ourselves, because we are part of the earth as well. So so that was it really. I set up Omnia with his product. You know, we've become very good friends since then, and yeah, we'll have other products coming through soon as well. Yeah, that's the intro. I live in London, and that's where I run my business from.
Well, I listened to you, and so to give everyone who's listening some context, my husband was listening to a 5G summit, and there was a lot of different interviews and things going on, but when you were talking about 0 point and what's happening to our cells, and then went into the dodecahedron, you had my full attention. And I know that most of the listeners know, but for some of you who are new, and for you, Tim, as a trance channel, when this pandemic kicked off, you know, all these years, I've been trance channeling probably all my life, but for sure since 2007 is when I really connected in with my collective team. And they are always talking about physics and quantum physics and time as a human construct and all of these different things, you know. So over the years, it's led me to many books and things that I've been interested in about physics and about what happens at a quantum level, because when you can see it in a meditation, you want to understand what in God's name you're seeing and how it's working. And at the beginning of this pandemic, I did a live download of a meditation to activate light in our cells. And it was called Activate Your Immunity. And my collective team brought through this meditation, and it's had powerful impacts on me and many, many, many of my clients in the community who have listened to this over and over. Then they did a second meditation in which they activated the 144 DNA crystalline grid and asked us to begin activating this crystalline energy into our cells. And here I'm listening to you talk about the science, and I'm like, oh my God, like this is what we're doing. And you have science to back it up, talking about what it does. And so I want you to explain to everyone a little bit about, you know, 0 point and what's happening in our cells and how EMFs and these other radiations are affecting our cells, because then I want to get into the dodecahedron, but I want to give them some context for that. So.
Sure. Okay. Well, I mean, first of all, just the slight caveat that I'm pretty much the translator in all of this. Dr. Lakisevich, or Laki as he's known, is from Serbia. His English is perfect, but I'm kind of someone who can take his knowledge, which is right up here, and bring it down to a format that even I can understand, right? And that's kind of important, because not everyone is up there or wants to be up there, you know. So what I try and do is to try and visualize certain things or tell stories around it so that people can sort of understand it. But if I ask everyone to picture a donut, right? Picture a donut, and what's in the middle of a donut is empty space, right? So if you imagine within the empty space in the middle of the donut, there is just one magnetic point. It's a still point of 0 electrical charge, right? And it holds that donut in a perfect donut shape. So if you now imagine that that donut is a ring of spinning electrical current or light, then effectively that's what an atom is. This is what he's found. This is you know, the kind of physics that he's proven, and there's several papers that I can send you the links to share with your viewers. So that's important, because every electrical current or electrical ring of light gets its energy to spin and move itself from that magnetic still 0 point in the center of the field. Right, so it dives into that magnetic point to get the power to spin itself, and then it obeys 2 phases. It makes itself into matter, right? And this is the same in my body as it is for this table or this wall. Every atom dives into the still point to get the energy to make itself into matter, and then it discharges itself into the ether. And then it recycles that energy back through the 0 point to spin itself again. So it spins itself into matter, discharges itself. And it's almost like it flicks on and off, on and off, on and off, on and off in rapid succession, so that it appears material or real, right? Or permanent. But actually, everything, every atom is energy in motion. And it follows that oscillation between those two phases, making itself discharging. So everything is like a big hologram where everything is flicking on and off at different frequencies. And frequency is the speed at which it flicks on and off, right? So we have different frequencies in our bodies, such as my liver is operating at a different frequency to my heart or my kidneys or even my brain waves. Everything in the human body is electrical, right? Everything in all life is electrical, right? Because that's how atoms behave, with that spinning ring of toroidal light, okay? So it's the same, like I said, in this wall than it is in my body, but the difference between my body and this wall is I have a mind, and my mind can operate my body, right? So I can move my body around at any time, and then I can make a mental decision. I can decide what to have for lunch. I can decide what to say in my next sentence, and I can decide to do this podcast with you, Lisa. So it's almost like I draw the comparison that there is intelligence in that 0 point field that is basically pretty much running the show, right? In our bodies, for example. And I'll give you an example of that. I don't know how my fingernails grow, right? And they just do. They just grow, right? I don't tell them to grow. I don't water them, you know. I don't give them anything, you know. I feed them. I feed my body, but you know what I mean? It's like there's an operating system, an intelligence, a higher source of intelligence in the body that is just running the show. And it's same for how you breathe, and oxygen goes into your bloodstream. It's the same with your stomach digesting your food. All of these are functions in the body which are just happening. And there's another source of intelligence, and it's from that 0 point field, which is delivering that intelligent source into each atom and cell to give it life. And then, like I said earlier, as mental beings, because we are primarily mental beings operating in a body that was pretty much gifted to us by, if you like, the universal creator. As mental beings, we come in and we have a life experience. We decide whether to, be a doctor or a, sportsman or a musician or a, whether to have a family, whether to be a drug addict, whatever we want to do. We decide to have all those experiences and experience life as, if you like, a fractal of the whole. Each body, each person is that fractal of the whole experience, which is all learning collectively en masse. So that fundamental starting block is where we need to start from as electrical beings in order for us to understand why radiation that was previously considered to be non-ionizing, therefore harmless, is actually harmful to us. So that's the big discovery that Dr. Laki brings to the table, and I can now speak to that and represent it because I've taken the time to understand it myself, right? So what you have, and I mentioned ionizing versus non-ionizing. Instead, the way we classify it is that you've either got balanced radiation, like the sun, or you've got imbalanced radiation, like a man-made wireless radiation field, or an X-ray, which goes at so much oscillation or so much frequency that it creates a lot of heat. And we know that that heat then damages the human cell. But previously we thought, well, things that are extremely low frequency, they didn't create enough heat, therefore they didn't damage the human body, therefore not immediately, therefore they were just safe. And there was just this blanket kind of, that's safe, case closed, that sort of thing. So what we're saying is that there's a fundamental difference between the sun and the man-made radiation field. And it's that if you picture that perfect donut as being a circle, and you picture the 0 point being straight in the middle of that sun's ray, okay, you will always have that 0 point directly in the middle of a perfectly balanced field. Sure, it's hot, it's a lot hotter than our phones, for example, but it's perfectly balanced, right? And then you get a wireless radiation field. And what we find is that if you were to see the 0 point, it would be moving around. It would never be settling in the middle, right? So what happens is that in the human body, you've also got all of our cells are looking to maintain that perfect donut shape, that perfect torus field shape. Sure, when you eat toxins, when you eat a lot of sugar or too much fat or something like that, it challenges the body and it throws that shape out. But your body is always looking to get back into that optimal, balanced, centered state of harmony and well-being. So effectively, if you've got like the perfect cell here with the 0 point in the middle, and then you've got the wireless radiation field, and it's kind of like an agitated wave field, what happens is, because of the law of resonance, because we are electrical beings and we respond to everything that we expose ourselves to and we experience, like I'm resonating with you right now, Lisa. I resonate with good music, with sunlight, because sunlight keeps me alive, good food, a hug. These are all resonant things that we are in tune with, or even smelling flowers, for example, that's a resonant effect in the body. That's, when you're compatible with that vibration. And when you're not compatible or incompatible, the same effect happens. You pick up the vibrational pattern of that wave field, right? And that's what happens with wireless radiation. Your cells start listening to this imbalance and start resonating in sympathy with that wave field. And the best example that I can give of that is if you put two guitars together, right? And you have 6 different strings, right? If you pluck one string, let's say it's the A string or something like that, you pluck the A string on one guitar, then what happens on the other guitar? Well, what happens is that the A string on the other guitar starts to resonate in sympathy. It starts to make the A sound as well, but only the A sound, because all of the others are in a different frequency band, right? And the thing is, as beings of electricity, we are also radiating ourselves, because radiation is a natural process of that electrical current, right? So we are also radiating, our bodies are radiating. And as we walk into those radiation fields, we start to radiate in sympathy with those radiation fields. And then we pick up that imbalance, which causes a minor imbalance in our cells, which over time is going to cause dis-ease in the body. And it's not going to happen in 1 year. It's probably not going to happen in 5 years, but after 10 years of constantly using phones and constantly exposing ourselves to wireless radiation, something might happen. We don't know what, but all we do know is that there have been, and Josh Del Sol covered this in absolute detail with all of the biologists that came on. We do know that they've studied all of the effects and shown all sorts of horrible stuff, whether it be oxidative stress, DNA damage, infertility, endocrine system damage, the list goes on and on, diabetes, the list goes on and on and on, because it affects us on an electrical level. And then secondary to that is the biological effects. So all the biologists are picking up the biological effects, going, wait a minute, what's going on here? But no one can quite understand or explain why it happened in the first place. And that's what we're bringing to the table, to say it's because of the nature and the behavior of electrical current. And in order to understand that, you need to know what the true concept of the atom is. So that's a very long-winded way of me to explain why we react in the way that we do. But if you've got any questions about that, far away.
Oh my gosh. Well, I find it so fascinating. And I think it's a great explanation of what's really happening there, and what's happening with our cells. And I will say for everybody listening, and I'll put the links in the show notes, there's some excellent videos on the Omnia website that will show you even more visually what is going on and what's happening with your cells, that I just think is just so amazing and fascinating. So I want to talk about the dodecahedron, because what got my attention was when you were talking about this. I mean, you already had my attention when you were talking about the atoms and what they look like. However, the dodecahedron and the concept of the 144 DNA grid that's on the planet is a double dodecahedron. And you're talking about a dodecahedron at a quantum level in our cells and what it can do. And part of what I loved about what you said was about our intentions and our ability to transcend some of these things that are happening on the planet and some of the radiations that are affecting us. And so would you talk about that?
Sure. Well, first of all, there's one part that that you touched on there that I'm just going to make very clear, which is that consciousness plays a major part in science for us. And, this is how we'll demonstrate this, is that 0 point field that's in the middle of every atom is conscious. It's basically listening to our desires, right? And we can actually throw anything we want out into the field, and it's our choice in this planet of free will to create from whatever space we see fit. So I can create from the space of love and compassion and gratitude and all those good things, and I can equally, with my free will, hate things and people and go on and riot and loot and be destructive, or abuse someone. That's my choice, right? And 0 point field is always listening to that energy, because we as human beings are the master creators on this planet, right? It's not the cows, it's not the horses. We're the ones that build bridges, write love songs, build computers and whatever else, right? We are the master creators, and the 0 point is listening to every time we create something, right? So that's the first point to make there, is that we have enormous powers, right, of creativity. And a lot of the time I get a bit dismayed when I just see people in victim mode about 5G. Not that it's not true, but if you stay in victim mode, then what's going to happen in a year's time? You're still going to be a victim, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't make a breakthrough in terms of your own powers and your own kind of, sovereignty, if you don't make that breakthrough, then you're basically just going to walk into that victimhood scenario, right?
Yeah.
So it's up to us to really kind of take that to heart and understand that, we have this ability to work with energy, right? And to create. And the best way of creating something new is to make the old system redundant. Just to create something and basically retire the old system. That's the best way of upgrading anything, right? So that's where our energy needs to be pointing towards, and that's what I love about what Dr. Lakisevich, or Laki, represents, because he has discovered a new unit of energy. So it's basically a little bit like someone discovering the electron or something like that.
Yeah.
But ultimately, he describes it as kind of the energy of the fifth dimension, and it's sort of arrived in our atmosphere only in the last 15 or 20 years. And as far as I know, he's one of the only people that's working with it, right? But I'm sure that there will be many more. And I'm absolutely sure that many people will remember in the months to come that they're here to work with it too, because it's not here by accident, right?
Yeah.
So what it is it's a 12-sided sacred geometric shape. It's the dodecahedron is incredibly, powerful as a platonic solid. I think it houses all of the other platonic solids, so it's a kind of master shape and structure and balance. And remember we talked about balance earlier on in the cell, in the torus field. That's a very important part of nature, because when you have that perfect donut torus field shape with the 0 point in the middle, and you've got the perfect donut, that represents the vibration of love, because everything comes from love, everything is love, everything originates from that, that vibration of love, if you like. And then it can go off on tangents and end up somewhere else, in abuse, like I said earlier on, or trauma or fear or whatever. But that's what we have in terms of when we're navigating the hologram. We have that impact as mental beings to be able to go in and actually say, well, let's bring it back to the vibration that we want to with our conscious intent, right? So Laki started to see these dodecahedrons, and the difference with this dodecahedron is that it's got 12 cones of spinning light on the inside, spinning energy on the inside. And so those 12 cones go into the middle, start larger at the outside, and then sort of go into the middle, and then it's like 6 pairs opposite each other within the dodecahedron frame, right? So there's 12 cones in all, but they're 2 opposite each other, right?
Okay.
Or 1 opposite each other, make a pair. And so that light is passing its way back and forth across the 2 cones, and then there's 6 pairs of cones passing the light, around this dodecahedron shape. And this is where we talk about the energy of the future, because our conscious human intent, if we've taken the time to learn how, can be used to program this new unit of energy to do what we want it to do, right? So it's an energy that is tiny, it's minuscule. I think he's described it as like 100 times smaller than an electron. So only he can see it in his, clairvoyant, capabilities. I can foresee, a quickening where we all start to work with this and understand its capabilities and wake up to our skills in that. But yeah, like I said, what he's used it to do so far is to carry an instruction that meets the imbalanced, uncentered wave field of wireless radiation, and to put the 0 point straight back into the middle. So he's like changing it from an imbalanced wave field to a perfectly balanced wave field. And when that's the case, the human cell then listens to that newly changed wave field and actually resonates positively with it, in resonance with it, if you like. And so that's the big difference, is that, through the Deca technology, which, like I said, is very small, and this is our product here, by the way, it just fits into one of these patches, which you then peel off and put on a mobile phone. And then that conscious energy field meets the imbalance field of the radiation and then sets it back to balance and centeredness, so that your body then becomes strong and doesn't absorb that imbalance. And the way we prove that is by doing muscle tests, kinesiology. We've done live blood analysis. At the moment, I'm doing heart rate variability testing as well, which the results will come through soon, and also some live cell culture studies, which will show us a lot about oxidative stress. But we also do the Dr. Emoto tests as well, where we hold a phone next to a cup of water, make a phone call for 5 minutes, and then we analyze the water structure, and the water has absorbed the new balanced vibration of the radiation field, and it comes out with perfect crystals in hexagonal shape, because it's organized itself into that pattern of love. Yeah. So it's kind of, it's breaking a lot of boundaries here. We're talking about 0 point, we're talking about the creator, we're talking about love in physics.
Yeah.
These are things that most people are just like, whoa there, we there's too much for a lot of people. But ultimately, if we're stuck in the old way of consciousness and the old paradigms of science, then we won't make the breakthroughs that we need to move us into this new era. And I truly believe that 5G is here as a massive challenge for the whole of the human race to wake up, understand, the electric universe, the hologram, the whatever you call it, but understand where, the truth is in physics, and then make that next leap, which is towards resetting our energy systems so that they serve us rather than us serving them. So this is a massive shift, which is at a moment we have energy systems of generation, extraction, and payment, right? Mm-hmm. So, I want electricity. I get it off the grid. The generator basically generates it. As soon as I've used it, it's gone, and I pay for it. Repeat, repeat, repeat. And then why do we go to work? To pay the bills. So that is us being the slave of the electricity grid, which gives us a big clue as to why we don't react very well to it. But I'm not going to go into that here because I don't want to get into too much trouble. But maybe that's one for another show.
Yes.
But you understand that energy within the electricity grid is something that maybe we don't like, we don't resonate with as divine beings. So that's that we're flipping that on its head, so that the old systems where we were the slave to the energy grid, now we're flipping that around and saying, how about energy serves us, and we tell energy what we want it to do. And the really lovely thing that Laki taught me is that unit of energy will not do anything that is out of the resonance of love. So it won't go and fire a missile, right? It won't do that. So it'll only do things that are in harmony with the rest of the nature, the creation, and us. So we can ask it to do benevolent things, and it will serve us. So I see this whole 5G situation as a challenge to us all to understand more about this and validate it. I'm not asking everyone to just take my word for it, because ultimately I'm taking his word for it as well. But then I've seen how effective the first solution is in terms of balancing the field, because I test it all the time and it always tests well. So yeah, validate it. Check out his papers, understand, that there are alternative truths, and work with it to see if we can move into, like I said, a new era of energy.
I'm like bursting. Like, part of me wants to cry, part of me wants to shout. Like, what you're saying, it is not too much for us here at Buddhist Biohacker, I'll tell you that much. Like, this is like, good. Oh my God, it's just,
I'm in the right tribe.
You just speak like my whole, when things change in your molecular structure, there's heat.
Right.
And my body is like tingling with heat, as it's like my cells are like, we're so ready. And there's so many things you said here.
Truth bumps.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's so many things you said here, and I've got all these notes I was taking, and I also have questions from folks in the live. So we'll get to those in just a second. But when you talk about like, we create our life, and I have been doing psychic readings since 2006, and I have told everyone since that first day that I am not a fatalist, that we create our life. And what we're really looking at, we being psychics, and I believe everyone's psychic too, by the way, but what you see when you look into the future is you're accessing what you're creating. And this discussion, I don't even know what to say, because I'm so passionate about it. I'm like overwhelming myself here right now. But when you talk about like what we're creating and how our cells react, and that they each have their own individual consciousness, it's just so true, and you create what we create from those filters and their ancestry and the baggage and the suffering, but also our gifts and our talents and our connections with God and spirit and all these things. I mean, that is how we've gotten to this place. And I feel like Mother Earth and God's source is asking us to see things for what they are, to see the truth of what they are. And it lies in what you're talking about, in our actual cells and the function of how we operate. And it's so important and incredible and profound. And I'm looking at my notes here because I also, when you talk about the vibration of love and what we create, and many people on the show know I followed His Holiness the Dalai Lama around for 7 years and did a bunch of volunteer work and went through a lot of teachings with him. And that's when he talks about generating bodhicitta and compassion, that's what he is talking about. And there's a reason he's talking about it. And Tim, I don't know if you know this, I'm going to put the links, you guys are going to be on the show notes, but His Holiness did the Avalokiteshvara empowerments last week live on YouTube, which is unprecedented that he would do a Vajrayana Tantra initiation on YouTube live. But in the middle of the second day, so if you go to the videos, watch them both, but if you go to the second day, he spends quite a bit of time talking about quantum physics and what we're doing with bodhicitta at a quantum level. You wouldn't believe it, Tim. He's like literally talking about what you're talking about right now. It's so incredible that these teachers that we love and trust are also speaking the same exact language that we are speaking and seeing and feeling. It's unbelievable. I'm going to pull those quotes. I just haven't had time to do it yet. When I send out the replay, those quotes will be in there as well. And one of the questions we have from the live audience, I have some questions, but we do have a question. How does this 12-sided unit compare to the unit that Tesla was working with? And there's also another question. I'm going to give you both of them, and then you can decide which one you want to answer first or whatever. But it also says, also the 0-point energy used in alien spacecraft that apparently some are here on Earth, is what they say, have been known about, for up to 50 years and have used to produce craft operating the same 0-point energy. So I don't know how all that question works out, but I do want to touch on Tesla because I know that that's something that I saw on your website. I think you brought it up too. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are on those questions.
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Because everyone's got their own sort of area of expertise, and I'll tell you what I know. I mean, I'm not an alien expert. I'll be honest with you, but I'll speak to it anyway. I'll tell you what I feel, because that's why I'm here. So first of all, with the Tesla comparisons, Laki, the scientist, is he has two proteges. One is Tesla and the other one is Walter Russell, whose periodic table was based on harmonics and vibration. And he understood the relationship between each element, that one element begat another element at a certain pressure condition and so on. And somehow that periodic table was replaced by the one that we have at the moment, but he swears by that one. And then there's Tesla, because of the way that Tesla used to invent, because that's the way that he is also adopting to invent as well. And incidentally, Tesla was Serbian, and so is Laki, right? And there's no, in his view and mine, there's no coincidences, not there or anywhere. Laki, I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, he speaks to Tesla in his meditations, right? Because he's like a scientist who's had a spiritual awakening, breakthrough. It's almost like he's a bit of a gift, right? Yeah. And with all of these things, a lot of people, especially in the mainstream and the conventional science, who've been studying lots of other things for a long, long time, will push him away. But I really do encourage people to just have an open mind and open heart, if you're on the path to try and make things better. But so he he understood from Tesla exactly how Tesla went into the spirit realm to design and manifest his solutions so that he could make them easily and with grace, right? So that's I've actually done a video all about that, called The 7 Steps to Creation, which is an interview between me and Laki. So if anyone's a real, Tesla nerd, of which there are many people out there, please go and check that out, because there's stuff in that video that I've even forgotten right now. And you'll find out all of the stuff that Laki.
Sorry, I
Yeah.
didn't interrupt you, but let's get those links. I'll get them in the show notes for everybody here and when we go on iTunes, so you guys can watch that video. So go on, sorry.
Yeah, sure. So Laki follows Tesla's 7 steps of creation. He's managed to establish that connection and bring that that methodology, if you like, if you can call it that, to his work. But Laki also calls Tesla's science the old way. And I think that's significant, right? Because Tesla built the whole of the last era, everything that was amazing in the last era, whether it be satellites, radio, also, electrical current, he's the father of the 21st century, or whatever they call him. He invented everything, right? And if you didn't, then he had a patent for it, which was, lifted, shall we say. So Tesla was the genius of the last century. But the reason why he calls it the old way is because Laki's vision is for a future where we don't have plugs, right? Or sockets, or whatever you call them in the US. There's no cables, right? Like, energy is literally in the atmosphere, being commanded by us and being told what to do. And it won't do anything that is not in harmony with the rest of the planet, and everything will be living in harmony, and, unity consciousness will prevail, and all those good things, because that energy will be responding to that energy, as will be in resonance with that energy as well. Whereas at the moment, when we plug a cable into anything, this computer, my phone, whatever, that energy source doesn't quite agree with us. And it served us amazingly well. We are, I'm a phone addict like most people, not an addict, but, I can't do without my phone like most people. We forget that we actually asked for this, right? We did ask for this. I asked to be able to speak to you for free, wirelessly or whatever, across the world, and share knowledge. We asked for this, right? So we can't sit there being victims the whole time and go, oh, they're killing us with 5G or whatever.
Yeah.
We can, but you've got to be honest and take responsibility for the situation as well. It's not the telco's fault. It's not Apple's fault. It's not whatever. It's our fault. We asked for this. We wanted to get here, but now it's our responsibility to look at what could get us out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in my view, it's not going to be too fruitful if you go back up to the corporations and go, can you just fix that, please? Because they've gone so far, it's going to be very difficult to want to roll back, or there's no plan B, right? So the plan B will probably have to be quite radical, and that's where new discoveries come in play, and everything else. But as with all these things, there's always, like, when there's a new discovery, there's a threat. So we have to be, kind of wary of that. I don't know if that answered your Tesla questions, but I would urge people to look at that video, and any other questions, you can shoot an email to me or whatever, and I can potentially ask them to Laki. You never know, he may come on your show if there's enough interest. So that was the first question. And the second one was about aliens, which is not like my area. But it was specifically out for 0 point, I'll just make this point about the 0 point, right? Which is that every 0 point in every atom is connected, right? It's a connected field. It's the field of all potential and all possibility, right? So, when I move my arms around like this, right? Or even just move my finger. It's my mind dialing into the 0 point field to ask it to bring the energy out so that I can move my finger, right? We're always interacting with that 0 point field. And the 0 point will be inside every single one of my cells and my atoms in my body, right? All, reacting to my conscious intent to actually move my finger around, right? That's what energy is. That's how we move energy around, right? That happens instantly, right? There's there's no time lapse between my finger and my brain saying move my finger around. It's just instant, right?
Yeah.
Once you've understood the 0 point physics and understood, how that conscious field is responding to us, step into that power, then yeah, you could devise machines that can move lightning fast across the world. Why not? I don't know how to do it, but and it's the same thing with Reiki, right? If I want to send you Reiki, I do it via the 0 point field because it's connected. I just send my conscious intent through the field. It's like some big telephone line, and I send that love, that energy, that whatever across to you, right? And that's how it works. So again, I don't know if that answered the question, but that's kind of what I know about that.
Well, I love that. I feel like that's a whole other show too, because as a psychic, I believe that that's how I read people. I think that's how we all read people, is through that 0 point field and connecting with the energy. I think that the reason I'm a medium and can speak to people who've passed away is because they're not passed away. They're actually just in the energy field that's still very accessible, even though they don't have a physical body. So that's like a whole other conversation, but it's, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember that asking is a key part of this as well, right? So if the
Yeah.
field is literally holding all information about everything, and on the other side of that field is whatever you call it, whether it's the Akashic records or whatever it is a record of every single energetic imprint that's ever happened, right? Because for every action there's a counter action on the other side which holds the information that you've just like when we're talking now right here, it's almost like there'll be a record of it on the ether, on the etheric side, that we're recording everything that we go through, because consciousness is moving like and yeah, if I forget where I was going with that, but ultimately you can train yourself to ask that field for the answers, right? Because it's there, it's still there, but you can train yourself to ask. But our education is much more about, right, sit down, read this book, and then repeat it, and we'll give you an A or B, or if you're like me, you give you a D, right? So you see what I mean? It's like, how are we educated? What do we learn? Well, people just aren't taught that this exists, so they don't even think to go into that space. But other people who've had experiences or aha moments or breakthroughs or whatever you might call it, they'll go towards that, like you have, Lisa. Yeah.
Oh man, time flies. I hope you're going to come back, Tim. I hope you're going to come
I don't know
back.
if I've got anything more to say. I think I've exhausted all my supplies. Yeah, no, I'm more than happy to any time.
Yes, I love it. I would love to dig into all the your own spiritual journey too. But my last question today is, what's next? What's next for Omnia? What's on your radar? What's next for you?
Yeah, well, at the moment, hopefully some staff. Just I mean, it's quite funny. We've had a great couple of months, and I've because of lockdown, they've stopped a lot of the courier services. So I've had to go down to the post office with literally suitcases full of envelopes to send out to various people. So that's my little poor me story. But yeah, the next steps are just to I've got a lot of sort of business things I want to do, tidying up the brand and everything else, but we want to we want to do a water bottle as well. You know, I mentioned earlier on that one of the tests that we do is holding a foam next to water, and then we freeze and we do the Dr. Emoto test on the water, and it comes out in perfect crystals, structured, hexagonal. Or, you know, that is the optimal snowflakey shape of water. So we want to do that in a water bottle, right? So you just have a glass bottle, put a patch on, any water that goes in, it will be structured, and that will be good for the health. So that's the next product. And then the future I see of Omnia is that it just becomes a little bit more of a bigger than one product brand. So, you know, our logo is all about sort of going from orange to aquamarine blue. And I just see us moving into more products or services which are all about going from toxic to purity, from, you know, stress to, you know, relaxedness, or whatever you call it, calmness. Just anything that fits into that whole vision of, you know, going from something that's broken to something that's fixed. So that could be podcasts, it could be other things, you know. And then the other thing, I know that Laki's building, I don't know whether he's going to let me sell it yet or not. I have to have a word with him. And I have to be a little bit careful here, because this sort of thing gets people into trouble. But ultimately, he's developing other products that don't require electricity, right? And that ruffles feathers, as you probably know. But the first one he's doing is an aircon unit, an air conditioning unit, which, and you know how much electricity those things guzzle, right? So, but if that is proven as a concept, then it's huge. It's huge. But I don't want to, you know, that's been on the table for a little while. We'll see what happens. But yeah, that's it.
Well, thank you so much.
So that'll keep me busy.
Yes, that should keep you busy. And
great.
I'm with you on the staff. I finally got some help myself, and it's been nice to not be a one-woman show. So I feel you on the taking packages and doing all sorts of stuff. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much.
It's always good to have some help.
Yes. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you so much. I mean, I did most of the talking, so I sorry about that. I hope that wasn't too much of a, you know, too much gushing, but
that's the point. And for everybody who's listening, it's Omnia, and we have a special discount code if you want to go and get on this bus, which I think we all should. You can use Biohacker, and you're going to save 10% off. And I'm really looking forward to getting mine that are on their way. And we'll get all the links up and everything you need. Tim, do you want to share for those who are listening on audio how they can connect with you?
Sure, you just go to www.omniaradiationbalancer.com. And yeah, you can send me an email from the website, or just go and have a look at the test results that we've got. There's much more information about our science. On YouTube, we're on Omnia Balance as well. There's lots of videos there, interviews between me and the inventor about, you know, the new dawn of physics and energy. Those are my two go-tos. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I hope to have you back. I really enjoyed talking with you and hearing everything you had to say. And, you know, we here at Buddhist Biohacker saying 5D Schmived. We're going to go to 11D. And I think that's a lot of what we're talking about. Yeah. So thank you again. It's just been awesome. Thank you to everybody who's been listening and watching live, and for your questions and comments. And let's keep the conversation going on MeWe. Let's keep the conversation going here on YouTube. And again, thank you so much. It's really been great. And everybody have a great, great weekend, for whatever that means, because I think in the world of no time, who knows what a weekend even is. So
yeah. Saturday's the new Tuesday or whatever. Yeah, absolutely.
That's so true.
I don't know what to say there. Yeah. Thank you, Lisa. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Yes. And yeah.
Thank you, guys.
See you
Thank
next
you,
again
everyone
soon.
who listened. Thank you, Tim. Have a great day, everybody.